Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Behavior Bites. I'm Gabrielle Johnson with Best Life Dog Services, and I am super excited to be here today with our guest, Lesley Gurule, CPDT-KA and an AKC-CGC evaluator who works as a behavior and training associate with the Richmond SPCA. She teaches group classes as well as private lessons, and so is going to talk to us a bit today about what's right for your dog. If you're coming to class, what should you know? A bit about how to have a successful relationship with your dog. Lesley brings so much to the table. So I'm super excited to have you here, Lesley.
Excited to be here.
Lesley has her bachelor's degree in psychology and in theater and a master's of fine arts in acting. And you're going to have to help me again, Lesley. Feldenkrais? Feldenkrais, I had it, professional dog training or professional training program, sorry. And then this whole journey kind of started your dog training journey as a volunteer, right? At the Animal Rescue, walking dogs, and then you became an assistant manager at Dogger, and we're working with fearful and reactive and dogs that were facing behavioral challenges, which is a great way to, that was my kind of similar intro into, oh wow, this behavior stuff is really interesting. And this is the part I always geek out about, right? So you did an apprenticeship in New York with, and will you help me again with her, Amanda
Gagnon.
Dog training. And I remember this is one of the first things when we met. This is one of the first things that we talked about because your mentor trained under Ian Dunbar, right? And I was like, fangirling, that's so cool. And so we met when I was doing volunteer trainings at Richmond Animal Care and Control, and you had just moved to the city, and then the rest is history. And so you worked there as a trainer and behavior evaluator at Richmond Animal Care and Control, and then that brings us to the current behavior and training assistant at the Richmond SPCA. And so I'm so excited to talk with you. For everyone listening, we've been talking about okay, how do we narrow this interview down? How do we pick one cohesive topic and not jump from topic to topic? So this is probably one of many interviews, but I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you so much for your time. So tell me more about getting started and getting interested in behavior and working with dogs and families.
I was living in Brooklyn, New York, and I was working however you want to define that, as an actor. So I had a lot of downtime. And so I started volunteering at this local animal shelter. And, the thought was just, I like dogs. There's dogs. I can go walk dogs. That was it. None of this was supposed to happen. But I just kept going with that. And I was there a couple of days a week, and then every day, and then before and after it was open, and my husband stopped calling because he knew that's where I was, and it was maybe this is something I should pay attention to. If this is something that's making me this happy that I want to do all the time, let's maybe investigate this. So I started working as a dog walker just to make sure, hey, do you want to hang with crazy dogs all day every day? And I was like, yes, I do. And then I worked as an assistant manager there, so got to do a lot more. Still wanted to work with all the dogs and all the people. So I started thinking about okay, so what does it mean to be a dog trainer? How do we start doing that? Because as you know, and I'm sure you will talk about in many different webinars and things and places, dog training is unregulated. So you do not have to do anything to say you're a dog trainer. I don't even know if you have to do you have to even be 18? I'm not even sure.
I know that you do.
Yeah. Totally unregulated. And that seemed weird to me. Maybe we'll just leave it there. And I didn't feel comfortable saying that I was a dog trainer, even though I had been walking and working with dogs and stuff like that. I had no formal education in what animal behavior was or what dogs were. I mean, when you really start thinking about it, what do you really know about a dog? So I started looking around for an apprenticeship, and there were a lot of different trainers offering different types of, I don't even know what exactly. You could pay thousands of dollars to follow this one around for a week. Yeah, there was a lot of different options. But I met with Amanda, really liked Amanda. There's a lot of, especially in New York, when I was looking around, there are a lot of very guru dog trainer, like, oh, you just feel it. And like, I'm just kind of this mystical, like, know it all. I just know because I know sort of thing. And that's not my jam. I'm like, no, why do you know it? I want to know that. Tell
Science
me that.
versus like
Yeah,
energy.
exactly. I'm not into the energy.
Yeah.
And Amanda is super cool, super casual, not at all guru, not at all ego, nothing like that at all. She's just like, how can I help you and your dog? Like, yeah, even though her mentor was Ian Dunbar, she's got tons of like amazing credentials and like super cool like things behind her education. She's amazing, but super cool, super approachable. And yeah, so I was happily, luckily accepted into the apprenticeship. And yeah, so we did weekly classroom sessions, because again, super into like foundational knowledge. Like we want to make sure you know what a dog is and like what dogs do and why do they do certain things like that. The end point of the apprenticeship was to work as a trainer within the company. So Amanda wanted to make sure that she had good trainers. So she decided to do the apprenticeship to get good trainers. She would train up the trainers that she wanted, basically was the idea. So yeah, so we had to pass the CPDT-KA. So we all worked, or me and Gwen, it was two of us, we worked towards that. And we did, yeah, weekly lectures, and we observed puppy socials, and then assisted, and then ran, and then board and trains and classes. And we were part of like all the internal staff meetings. So we got to see like how the company actually worked, and like, oh, this is like literally the program you use for scheduling. And so, yeah, we really got to see like what it was we would be a part of, as well as like all this foundational, amazing education.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
That sounds absolutely amazing. I bet you learned so much. That just sounds really hands-on and really, really cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
And so then we got you here in Richmond,
Yeah, I'm
right?
speaking to you from Richmond. So yeah, the whole point of the program was to like, go up and be a trainer. And then my husband got a got a job in Richmond. So I'm not there currently. They're awesome. I still keep track of them and everything else. But yeah, so I'm here. And yeah, it's this is an amazing community here, because in New York it is huge, and it is, I mean, it's a little overwhelming, but yeah, this is a really great community here.
Well, I think we are very, very, very lucky. I kind of think of it like as like New York's loss is our huge gain.
Aw.
So super, super excited to have you here, and all the knowledge and skill and experience that you bring with you has been very, very cool. So now you are at the SPCA, and a big part of what we're talking about today is the classes that you teach. And I think that they're can be some confusion when folks are seeking out help for their dog and they're like, well, do I need a class? And that's what a lot of people think of when they're having a problem with their dog is, well, we should go to class. And sometimes class isn't necessarily what someone needs. Sometimes what they need is more behavior help. And so, and then there's some crossover, right? Because there are some classes that can focus on behavior. Like I know the SPCA does like the reactive dog class. And so, but we've talked, and without going too far down that rabbit hole, right? But like manners aren't necessarily going to help your fearful dog, overcome their fears. And manners can really help with confidence and give you and your dog some connection in language. And so how is someone supposed to sort out, where they're supposed to go? And so kind of before we even get into that, someone's coming to class. What do you want them to know before they come to class with their dog?
Yeah, well, that's like a huge question, and it seems so easy, right? You sign up for class, you bring your dog, you put him on a leash, go from there. It's really hard. It's you really want to make sure that it's a good fit for your dog. Like you were saying, if your dog is really anxious, really shy, really reactive, a group setting in a strange building is probably not going to be their happy place. That's not going to be where they learn the best. And if you ever have any questions about that, like I would seriously, seriously recommend, please reach out to your instructor before and be like, hey, I'm not sure if this is going to be right for my dog. She's a little shy. She's a little this, that, whatever. Reach out first for sure. Any instructor worth their salt should be more than happy to talk to you and just give you an idea of like, is this a good fit or not? What else did you ask, Gabrielle? I'm already like losing it.
I know there's so many potential rabbit holes. So we were talking about kind of if you could tell people like before they come to class, what would you want them to know?
Oh, okay. Right. Okay. So yeah, aside from just figuring out if like this is going to be a good fit for you and your dog, and along those lines, again, like if you're having like severe behavioral issues or even like what you think might be behavioral issues, you really probably want to check in with the instructor first or look at private training. Group classes are really great for practicing things in a distracting environment, and they're really great for socialization, which has been super important this last year, especially. But they're not for every dog. The other thing is that I've been trying to figure out like a fun way to say this, and I can't. I haven't got it. If anyone has this, please tell me. You have to practice outside of class if you're going to see results. You can see I'm already like, oh, I don't want to say it because it's not fun, but it's like, oh man, you just have to. You've got to practice outside of class. Just going to a group class once a week is not going to do it.
Sure.
And yeah, it's I'm already like trying to think of another way to say it, but I think that's like kind of like one of the big things. It's really hard to get across is like it's just not going to be enough if you're not going to learn to play guitar if you go to a group class like once a week for 6 weeks. Like you're not going to learn to play guitar. That's just not the way it's going to work. Same thing for your dog. They're not going to get it. Going to check in with you again, Gabrielle. What am I forgetting?
I think that's great. And I think, how much of that, right, comes down to expectation and what people are, they come to class and they have like this idea of what their dog's going to be able to do, what their dog's going to learn, and what they're going to walk away with. And I think, something is, it's like, that can be so different from what's actually, it's like, I'm sure you get this a lot, is like, how long is this going to take? We see this in behavior too, right? I'm sure you get this at private lessons as well as class. How long is it going to take until my dog comes out this like perfectly obedient dog who is no longer anxious or over aroused or, listens to everything at the drop of a hat immediately? And it's, I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of the difference between reality and our expectations. And I think a lot of times expectations kind of forget to take into account that the dog is an autonomous being with it's we don't put these expectations on like pet rabbits or even cats, but with our dogs, and I think we could go completely down where that comes from culturally, like in dominance theory and all of that, but that is not how dogs work. And so what do you see with group classes? Like, what do you see with people and kind of their expectations versus what you would want them to understand?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that back. Expectations are huge. That's like the thing I was going to talk about, and I totally like whiffed it. I think one of the biggest things is that people have very, very high expectations for their dogs and very, very, very low expectations for themselves, if I can be brutally honest. And I teach a lot of puppy classes and adolescent dog classes, young dog classes. And I see a lot of very, very, very high expectations for babies. We're talking about babies, a different species baby. And again, very low expectations for the handler. And I feel like if we can kind of recalibrate that expectation balance, I guess, if you want to call it, that would help a lot. The handler usually has more yeah, more responsibility than they think they do. If I can just be brutally honest, the dog does not learn without the handler. Like, the handler is like first and foremost, you are the conduit through which the dog is going to learn. They're not going to get it through osmosis from just being in class. They're not going to get it by watching other dogs. They're going to get it from you. They're going to get it from their handler. So if you're not practicing, your dog's not practicing, you're not probably going to get the results that you're looking for. Is that kind of around where you?
Yeah. And I think, I loved your point of just like the handler having greater responsibility, because the dog doesn't choose the environment. The dog doesn't choose the distractions in their environment. They don't even really get, like you talked about, if your dog is shy or reactive coming to class, like, so that can be like bringing you, like, not you, but like a human into, you're like, here, we're in a room full of spiders. Let's learn algebra. And we're going to speak a language you don't understand while we teach it. And it's like, who can learn like that? And we are the ones who control that. And so it's even so much more, I think, because I think for like your average dog parent, they might be like, okay, yeah, I get it. I've got to practice more. But it's like, no, you've got to like understand your dog too. Like, you've got to set up the environment so your dog can be successful. Know what motivates them. You've got to like understand where their stress levels are, hear their body language, like, and so when I hear you say, like the handler carries more responsibility, that's all the kind of stuff that comes to mind, like that we as humans need to be aware of. And to your point, like so often folks just kind of come in being like, all right, here's the dog. Let's get to work on making that happen.
On making that.
You need a signature from me?
Yeah. And then, so this is the other thing I think about a lot as, as an instructor, is like, well, crap, are my expectations of the handler now maybe not where they're supposed to be? Because yes, as a trainer, we know you have to modify the environment. You have to have a high rate of reinforcement. You have to have your reinforcers like in check. Are you using a high enough value? We could go on and on and on and on about things that are like super, super obvious to us. And that's not obvious to normal civilians, so to speak. Yes. So like, what can we do as instructors to make this a little easier to understand, a little easier to digest? Because there's also, I think, like you were alluding to, definitely some cultural things that have come down as far as like, I don't have to do that for my dog. My dog is going to do that by themselves. Yeah, like how do we negotiate that? How do we navigate that?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you find that in just your work as well, in a private setting, in a private lesson environment.
Sure. Yeah. It's really common to work with folks who are, coming into this, and sometimes I work with folks who understand why their dog is doing what they're doing and just really need help figuring out that path of how to help them. And sometimes I talk to folks who are like, I don't understand what is happening. I want to help my dog, but I don't dog geek out on the weekends and watch, go to, they're not dog professionals. And so, we have that big communication gap. And I love your point of that's why we do what we do, right? Is to help people bridge that gap and to gain that understanding and realize what their dog needs so that they can be successful together. Because I think, most people want to be successful with their dog. And so that's, I don't know, that's my favorite part of the job, I think, is helping people understand.
For sure. I think there is, sorry, it just reminded me of like a challenge with group classes, I think, is that people get a little embarrassed or just very conscious that you're working with your dog in front of other people. And that can be that can just be very different from working in a private setting with a private trainer. Sometimes people get like just really, really self-conscious about it. And you try to structure the class so like, okay, we're not just staring at you doing this thing with your dog. You failed. Oh, you failed. Obviously we're not doing that, but there's still you're in a group setting. You're very much aware that there's other people around and that they might be looking at you, and this instructor's looking at you, and oh my God, my dog just peed. So it's hard. It's hard for the dogs and it's hard for the people. It's a higher, I mean, I think, I don't know, but I think generally group classes can be a more stressful situation sometimes for dogs and people,
Absolutely.
sometimes,
Yeah,
depending. Super general.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I told you I'm like trying to be like a supportive listener and then I just talk all over. Sorry. I'm like, yes. Um, when I taught puppy classes, the number of times that people were mortified because their baby puppy had peed on the ground. And I'm like, oh, honey, like puppies pee. It's this is not even this is like the eighth puppy that's peed in this facility
Yeah, I
today.
try to like
Like,
open, we have puppy socials at the SPCA where it's just socialization time and it's really great. And I try to open every single thing with like, I forget to say my name half the time. I'm like, your puppy is going to pee, they're going to poop. Here's the stuff. It's okay. It's okay for the puppies to pee and poop. They're going to, it's not, I mean, like just this whole thing, like, please don't worry about it. It's going to happen. Yeah, it's a whole
yes.
thing. Sorry.
No, yes, it is. It is. And I think, it's just like big message to anyone who has whose dog is having any type of behavioral anything, whether it's typical, where their puppy peed in puppy class, or, if you're dealing with like aggression or reactivity or whatever that might be, your dog's behavior is not a reflection of your worth as a human being. It just isn't. And oh gosh, okay, this is the last thing I'll say about this before we end up in a different rabbit hole, but genetics, epigenetics, intrauterine conditions, early environment, socialization, learned history. Like there are just so many things that go into a dog's behavior that have nothing to do with the owner. And man, when we can, I think, take that guilt away that so many people feel, I think that makes it easier for people to learn too. And so I love that you work that into your group classes.
Trying to, for sure. I mean, it's still like, it's hard because it's not just guilt, right? It's frustration, it's anger. We're not comfortable with that. No one's comfortable talking about those feelings, especially when you're talking about a puppy or a cute little like fluffy dog. It's complicated. There's a lot of feelings in there, for sure. Sorry, I don't know exactly where I was going with that, but you were making a point and I agreed with you.
Yes. No, we're doing great. It's like pandemic life. How does one hold a conversation again? How does that flow? Excellent. Lesley, thank you so much. This has been excellent. I have no idea if we are undertime, overtime. Maybe this is 2 episodes. But I think we're about at time and I want to keep talking. And so we're going to have to do another one of these very soon. But before we go, tell everyone where they can find you, what you're up to, and leave us with kind of a call to action. What, having learned everything that the folks that are listening just learned from you, what should they go do now?
Yeah. Sorry, my cat is desperately trying to get out. We're back. Manage the environment. Now she's not going to go. She's just sitting in there looking at the door. One thing for group classes, just know it's stressful. It's hard. It's weird. You're basically, like you were saying, you're dropping your dog and yourself off into the middle of a party where no one speaks the language and you're supposed to learn algebra or something. Like it's kind of a crazy thing to ask for both of you. That being said, bring really high value reinforcements. I had kind of a minor like spiel when we were talking about this before about Zooks. Zooks are great for home. Zooks are super great for home. They're good for environments where your dog is like super under threshold and like everything's cool. You got to bring out the big guns for group classes because it is really distracting. So you're not spoiling your dog. You are not spoiling your dog. You are enabling your dog to have the most successful experience that they can have and that you can have. High value reinforcements are really, really important for group classes.
Real and meat probably and cheese, folks.
What's that?
Real meat and cheese.
Soft things. Goes soft. Down.
Little bites.
We're not giving them cheese plates. Just
charcuterie boards.
No, but you're not spoiling your dog. This is the tool that you need to be successful.
I'm picturing like folks like tossing, like at zoos, like feeding tigers and stuff. And like we would never dream of being like,
Milk
you're
bone.
spoiling that tiger by feeding
Oh,
meat.
why don't you love the milk bone, tiger? So disrespectful. You're so stubborn. Oh, it's such a stubborn tiger. He's just being stubborn. Sorry.
Not very smart. He's just not a very smart tiger.
Sorry.
Okay. Lesley, thank you so much. This has been so fun. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here and talk. And I look forward to doing this again really
Absolutely.
soon. Thank you
Thank you.
so
This
much.
is so much fun. You're the best.